Book review. Book review. Book review. Hi. For my book, I will be talking about A Thousand Splendid Suns. This is the cover page of the book. Unfortunately, I do not have the book with me because, well, I can't go to school anymore, and my book was at school. So, A Thousand Splendid Suns, probably one of my favorite books ever. Probably one of the most influential books I've ever read. It is in the genre of domestic fiction. Excuse the noise, I'm puppy sitting. Yeah. So, A Thousand Splendid Suns follows a character called Miriam, and she is married to a character named Rashid, who is a very abusive, mean husband. But Miriam is very tough and very she's very inside herself. Like, she doesn't, express herself very often. Because she's had a very sad life. Her husband cheated on his wife with her mom, who was his cleaning lady. So she was kind of just this child that nobody wanted to talk about, nobody wanted to know about. And they were just very mean to her. She's lived a very sad life. And then we follow a character named Layla, and this book is told in the perspective of two characters who are Miriam and Layla. And Layla is this girl that she's 15, and her dad is very sensitive, which is not very common, especially not in the Middle East, where a lot of the men are, I don't know how to say it, they're very tough people. And he tries his hardest to get Layla an education because he says that women have the same rights as men. They just need to go out and get them. But eventually Layla's parents end up dying by a missile. And so then this is when Miriam's storyline catches up with Layla's storyline, and Miriam's family takes Layla in. A bunch of stuff happens. You'll have to read the book to find out. And then I have an excerpt that I'm going to read off of my computer. Out of the book. By ABC News online. It happened on a Thursday. It must have, because Miriam remembered that she had been restless and preoccupied that day, the way she was only on Thursdays, the day when Jalil, who is Miriam's dad, visited her at the Kolba, which is like their house, to pass the time until the moment that she would see him at last, crossing her knees high grass in a cleaning and waving. Miriam had climbed a chair, taken down her mother's china tea set. The tea set was a sole relic that Miriam's mother, Nana, had to her own mother, who had died when Nana was 2. Nana cherished each blue and white porcelain piece, the graceful curve of the pot sprout, the hand-painted finches and chrismarines, the dragon on the sugar bowl, meant to ward off evil. It was the last piece that slipped from Miriam's fingers that fell to the wooden floors of the kolba and shattered. When Nana saw the bowl, her face flushed red and upper lip shivered, and her eyes, both the lazy one and the good one, settled on Miriam in a flat, unblinking way. Nana looked so mad that Miriam feared the jinn would enter her mother's body again. But the jinn didn't come, not that time. Instead, Nana grabbed Miriam by the wrist, pulled her close, and through gritted teeth said, "You are a clumsy little harami. This is my reward for everything I've endured. An heirloom-breaking, clumsy little harami." At the time, Miriam did not understand. She did not know that this word, harame, bastard, meant. Nor was she old enough to appreciate the injustice to see it was the creators of the harame who are culpable, not the harame, whose only sin is being born. Miriam did surmise, by the way, Nana said the word, that was an ugly, loathsome thing to be a harame. Like an insect, like the scurrying cockroaches, Nana was always cursing and sweeping out of the kolba. Later, when she was older, Miriam did understand. It was the way Nana uttered the word, not so much saying it as spitting it at her, there Miriam feel the full sting of it. She understood what Nana meant, that Ihrame was an unwanted thing, that she, Miriam, was an illegitimate person who would never have legitimate claim to the things other people had, things such as love, family, hope, and acceptance. Jalil never called Miriam this name. Jalil said she was his little flower. He was fond of sitting her on his lap and telling her stories, like the time he told her that Herat, the city where Miriam was born in 1959, had once been the cradle of Persian culture, the home of writers, painters, and sophists. You couldn't stretch a leg here without poking a poet in the ass, he said, laughing. Jalil told her the story of Queen Gurur Shad, who had raised the famous minarets as her loving ode to Herat in the 15th century. He described to her the green wheat fields of Herat, the orchards, the vines, pregnant and with plump grapes, the city's crowded, vaulted bazaars. This part of the book shows one of the only things that Miriam truly found dear to her, and that was her father, since he was the only person ever in her life that actually appreciated her. And he eventually ends up dying, and this basically just crushes her soul, like the little bit of sensitive soul that she has left, and it just smashes it into a billion pieces. So then she ends up marrying Rashid, who's this very abusive, horrible person, but she's been through all this stuff her whole life, so she's very tolerant of it. The setting is in Kabul, Afghanistan. Some other books you might want to read if you are interested in this one would be The Kite Runner, who is by the same author, and The Mountains Echoed, which is by the same author. I've read all these books, and I would have to say The Kite Runner is the best, but to understand the full scheme of everything, I would read, Thousand Splendid Suns first, The Kite Runner, and The Mountains Echoed. They all happen at roughly the same time, but I felt like A Thousand Splendid Suns was the best one to read first because a lot of the cultural references and words and the language are very easily understood in A Thousand Splendid Suns, apart from The Kite Runner. And they all shed light on different aspects of the Afghanistan society during this massive war where everybody was leaving Afghanistan to go to Pakistan. A Thousand Splendid Suns covers more of the middle class, and then A Kite Runner covers more of the upper class, and The Mountains Echoed covers the poor lower class. My personal connection to this book, my English teacher, Mrs. Newmiller, recommended this book to me, and within reading it for the first 50 pages, I fell in love with it. I used to be this very closed-minded, shell, like, oh, any other culture around the world is wrong or bad. But I quickly found out that all these other cultures and all these new things are amazing. And opening your eyes to the world and just being accepting of all these new things and trying new things and doing new things, it was just amazing. It was this amazing feeling that I've never had before, and I've carried on this my thoughts like this for ever since. And this was sophomore year I read this book for the first time. I've read it a couple times, but yeah.